the US Congress has sent strong warning to Nigeria, revealing that the country is about to collapse. Nigerians are truly going through hell. Something needs to be done about this country, otherwise the country will perish in the blink of an eye. This news update captures a significant discussion about Nigeria's challenges as addressed by a US congressional event. The conversation highlights various issues including insecurity, corruption, governance, and systemic inequities. They urge for an urgent and coordinated international response to prevent Nigeria's potential collapse, emphasizing the global implications of the situation. The US Congress expressed concern about Nigeria's potential collapse and its impact beyond Africa. As Africa's most populous country, instability in Nigeria could have disastrous effects regionally and globally. There's a strong plea for the US administration to appoint a high-ranking official to lead efforts in creating and implementing a coherent policy to address Nigeria's challenges. This person would coordinate with various US government agencies and communicate effectively with the Nigerian government. The discussion references Nigeria's struggles with injustice, corruption, insecurity, and marginalization. Nigeria is led by corrupt leaders, and these leaders do not care about the well-being of the citizens. However, some critics have speculated that the cause of Nigeria's problem and predicaments is its failure to let the Biafrans go. Just like in the Bible where Pharaoh of Egypt refused to let the Israelite go, God struck them with famine and plague. Some critics argue that Nigeria's problem might come to an end if only they let the Biafrans go. According to him, the Biafrans are God's own children, and keeping them in perpetual bondage in Nigeria against their will has grave consequences. Let me tell you a story about Nigeria. It's a story I've been thinking about a lot lately, one that feels like it could come straight out of a novel or a movie, but sadly, it's all too real. It's about a country filled with vibrant people, rich cultures, and incredible potential, but also about a nation on the brink of collapse. And as I dive into this story, I want to take you with me so we can reflect on what's happening together. So picture this: Nigeria, the giant of Africa, home to over 200 million people. It's the most populous country on the continent and one of the largest economies in Africa. You might imagine bustling streets filled with traders, students, workers, and children running about, all trying to make something of their day. But beneath that busy exterior lies a brewing storm. The United States Congress recently issued a stark warning, saying Nigeria is on the verge of collapse. Can you believe it? The United States Congress, thousands of miles away, is concerned about what's happening in Nigeria. And not just concerned, they're calling it a crisis with global implications. Let's rewind for a moment. How did things get so dire? To understand, we need to look at the layers of issues Nigeria is grappling with. Corruption is one of the biggest. It's like a weed that's grown unchecked for decades, choking out opportunities and progress. Imagine a country with enormous wealth from oil and natural resources, yet millions of people are living in poverty. The money that should be used to build schools, hospitals, and infrastructure is often siphoned off by leaders who prioritize their own pockets over their citizens. It's heartbreaking, isn't it? But corruption is just one piece of the puzzle. Insecurity is another. Over the years, Nigeria has faced threats from extremist groups like Boko Haram, who have wreaked havoc in the northeast, and bandits who terrorize rural communities. Then there are the kidnappings, school children taken from their classrooms, travelers abducted from highways. Can you imagine the fear that comes with living in a place where stepping out of your home feels like a gamble? That's the reality for many Nigerians. Now add to this the issue of injustice. There's a widespread feeling that the system doesn't work for ordinary people. Imagine working hard every day, following the rules, and still being denied opportunities because of who you are, where you're from, or what you believe. This sense of marginalization is especially strong among certain groups, like the Biafrans. And this is where the story takes an even sharper turn. The Biafrans are an ethnic group in southeastern Nigeria who have long felt sidelined by the central government. They've been calling for independence for years, saying they want to create their own nation where they can govern themselves and live with dignity. But the Nigerian government has refused to let them go. Some people, including critics from within and outside Nigeria, believe this refusal is at the heart of the country's problems. They even draw parallels to the biblical story of Pharaoh refusing to let the Israelites go, suggesting that Nigeria's challenges, poverty, unrest and instability, might be divine punishment for keeping the Biafrans in what they see as bondage. Let's pause here for a moment. What do you think about that idea? Could it be that Nigeria's refusal to let Biafra go is what's holding the nation back? Or is the situation more complex than that? It's a tough question, one that has sparked heated debates across the world. Back to the United States Congress. Their warning wasn't just about pointing fingers. They're calling for action. They believe the United States government needs to step up and lead efforts to address Nigeria's challenges. They've proposed appointing a high-ranking official, someone with the authority to coordinate U.S. government agencies and work directly with the Nigerian government. The idea is to create a coherent strategy that tackles corruption, insecurity and governance issues, all while supporting the Nigerian people in their fight for justice and equity. Can you imagine the weight of such a task? It's like trying to untangle a web of problems that have been years in the making. But the United States Congress isn't just worried about Nigeria for Nigeria's sake. They're looking at the bigger picture. Nigeria's collapse, they say, could have disastrous consequences beyond Africa. Think about it. A country as big and influential as Nigeria going under would destabilize the entire region. Refugees would flood neighboring countries, economies would crumble, and extremist groups could gain even more ground. It's a nightmare scenario, and the United States Congress wants to prevent it. But here's where the story takes another turn. Some people are skeptical about the United States Congress's involvement. They wonder if this is really about helping Nigeria or if there's a hidden agenda at play. After all, the United States has its own interests in Africa, oil, trade and counter-terrorism, to name a few. So, is this call to action truly about saving Nigeria, or is it about protecting American interests? It's another tough question, one that adds even more layers to an already complicated story. Now let's go back to Nigeria for a moment. Imagine being an ordinary Nigerian in the midst of all this. You wake up every day hoping for change, for something, anything, that will make life a little easier. But instead you see headlines about corruption scandals, reports of attacks in distant villages, and stories of young people leaving the country in search of better opportunities. It's enough to make anyone feel hopeless. And yet Nigerians are some of the most resilient people you'll ever meet. They find ways to laugh, to celebrate, to keep going, even when the odds seem stacked against them. There's a saying in Nigeria, "We dey manage." It means we're managing, or we're coping. It's a phrase that captures the spirit of a nation that refuses to give up, no matter how tough things get. But should people have to manage their way through life? Shouldn't they have the chance to thrive, to dream, to live without fear? These are the questions that keep coming back to me as I think about Nigeria's story. And then there's the issue of freedom of speech. On paper, Nigerians have the right to speak their minds, to protest, to call out injustice. But in reality, that freedom often comes with strings attached. Journalists, activists, and ordinary citizens who dare to criticize the government sometimes find themselves in trouble. It's like walking a tightrope, one misstep and you could fall. Imagine living in a place where speaking out feels like a gamble, where even the truth can land you in danger. That's the reality for many Nigerians. So where does this story go from here? Is there hope for Nigeria? Can the United States Congress's warning spark the kind of change the country so desperately needs? Or will the storm clouds continue to gather, threatening to engulf everything in their path? I wish I had the answers, but the truth is I don't. There's still time for the tide to turn, for the pot to be taken off the boil before it spills over. As I think about all this, I can't help but feel a mix of emotions. Sadness for the struggles of the Nigerian people, frustration at the failures of their leaders, and hope. Hope that with the right support, the right decisions, and the right kind of leadership, Nigeria can rise above its challenges and become the shining light it was always meant to be. So what do you think? Could the United States Congress's intervention make a difference? Should Nigeria let Biafra go, or is there another path to peace and prosperity? I'd love to hear your thoughts, because this is a story that affects us all, no matter where we come from. After all, we're all connected in this world, and what happens in one corner of it can ripple out to touch us all.
Again, the purpose of this event is to try to make sure that the Congress of the United States, the administration of this country, our friends and allies around the world, and not least, of course, people of goodwill in this country and elsewhere, are on notice that Nigeria is at risk of disastrous collapse. That the forces that we've just been talking about are in the process of taking down a country that is the most populous in Africa, with horrific implications, not just for the immediate vicinity, the Lake Chad region as it's known, but for that continent and almost certainly others beyond. Congressman Wolf mentioned Bona, talking about a catastrophe that would make what has happened to Europe in the past few years, as a relatively small number of people migrated there with unbelievably chaotic consequences, look like a day at the beach by comparison. We're on notice, and the question is, do we have to wait until this horror is upon us before something is done about it? Or do we take steps now to try to prevent that? And I don't think any of us is saying that this is a panacea, but the appointment of the appropriate individual with the requisite authority. I just want to underscore what Congressman Wolf said about having the President of the United States essentially personally empowering Senator Danforth to lead the effort on behalf of our country to alleviate that situation. That has to be done again, and it has to be an empowering of a person with the stature and the capabilities needed to do two really vital things. One is to pull together the government agencies that have responsibility for pieces of a problem like Nigeria. The Defense Department, as well as, of course, the State Department, USAID, the UN mission of the United States, the National Security Council, and others, to come together with a common, appropriate, and much needed policy approach. And then secondly, at least as importantly, to be able authoritatively to represent what that approach is to the government of Nigeria. So they know who they're dealing with. They know that this is, in fact, the policy, and they can't go, looking for people who will provide some sort of alternative that might not require as much of them. So it's those two vitally important things that have to be done. And on behalf of, again, the Save the Persecuted Christians Coalition and team, I just want to say I think this is a moment of truth, a moment when we will find a difference being made by an administration that is about making a difference on behalf of religious freedom and those who are being denied it around the world. And let me just take a moment to say, as bad as this situation is, it is just one of the areas in the world in which particularly Christians are suffering. By some estimates, it's as small a number as 215 million Christians being brutally persecuted. By others, it's as high as 500,000. Excuse me, 500 million. This is on our watch. It is unconscionable. It must be challenged, contested, and if possible, stopped. And that's what this coalition is about. And I pray that we will be able, with the help of people like Congressman Estes and Congressman Wolf and the Archbishop and our coalition and countless others, to see this problem sorted by the appointment at the earliest possible moment, preferably by the end of this year, because these elections are approaching, of an individual with the requisite authority of the President of the United States and the assignment of making both the U.S. government policy coherent and clear and effective, and communicating that, again, authoritatively to the government of Nigeria, who in the end is ultimately responsible for preventing this catastrophe.
The pitiable situation of Nigeria, daily manner of April to June 2019, page 3, and I quote, Nigeria, it is a land of generals without war, professors without discovery, politicians without ideology, wealth without prosperity, religion without piety, leaders without vision, the oppressed without worries, courts without justice, criminals without fears, history without glory, heroes without honor, schools without learning, artists without theater, intellectuals without thoughts, terrorists without identity, appointees without life, hunger without famine, change without progress, next level without foundation, democracy without citizen, unity without love, heroes without sacrifice, policies without plans, crimes without culprits, saints without humility, integrity without performance, wars without enemies, billionaires without business, youths without dreams, elders without wisdom, a discipline without power. My wife added, families without leadership. And if you ask me, I will add, but I will not say so, judiciary without independence. In Nigeria, we are at a time when there is freedom of speech on paper, but there is no freedom at the end of speaking. Before you speak, there is freedom of speech. But after speaking, freedom is not guaranteed. You can finish speaking and something else will happen. We are in a time when there is press freedom, but after the press release, freedom is not guaranteed. You can land yourself in jail. What will you do when you administer justice in an environment like this? When we say A, we mean B. When we say right, we mean left. When there is equality before the law, but in practice, some people are more equal than others.
Dear compatriots, it gives me immense joy to welcome each and every one of you, young and old, to this brand new year 2024. We must lift up our hand to Almighty God in gratitude for His grace and benevolence to our country and our lives in the year 2023 that has just gone by. Though the past year was very challenging one, it was eventful in so many ways. For our country, it was a transition year that saw a peaceful, orderly, and successful transfer of power from one administration to another, marking the yet another remarkable step in our 24 years of unbroken democracy. It was a year you, the gracious people of this blessed nation, entrusted your faith in me with a clear mandate to make our country better, to revamp our economy, restore our security within our borders, revitalize our floundering industrial sector, boost agricultural production, increase national productivity, and set our country on an irreversible path towards national progress that we and future generations will forever be proud of. The task of building a better nation and making sure we have a Nigerian society that cares for all our citizens is the reason I ran to become your president. It was the core of my renewed hope campaign message, on the basis of which you voted me as president. Everything I have done in office, every decision I've taken, and every trip I've undertaken outside the shores of our land since I assumed office on 29th May 2023 have been done in the best interest of our country. Over the past 7 months of our administration, I have taken some difficult and yet necessary decisions to save our country from fiscal catastrophe. One of those decisions was the removal of fuel subsidy, which had become an unsustainable financial burden on our country for more than 4 decades. Another was the removal of the chokehold of few people on our foreign exchange system that benefited only the rich and the most powerful among us. Without doubt, these two decisions brought some discomfort to individuals, families, and businesses. I am well aware that for some time now, the conversations and debate have centered on the rising cost of living, high inflation, which is now above 28%, and the unacceptable high underemployment rate. From the boardroom at the broad streets in Lagos to the main streets of Kano and Nembe Creeks in Bayelsa, I hear the groans of Nigerians who work hard every day to provide for themselves and their families. I'm not oblivious of the expressed and sometimes unexpressed frustrations of my fellow citizens. I know for a fact that some of our compatriots are even asking if this is how our administration wants to renew their hope. Their compatriots, take this from me. The time may be rough and tough. However, our spirit must remain unbowed because tough times never last. We are made for this period, never to flinch, never to falter. The socio-economic challenges of today should energize and rekindle our love and faith in the promise of Nigeria. Our current circumstances should make us resolve to work better for the good of our beloved nation. Our situation should make us resolve that this new year 2024, each and every one of us will commit to be better citizens. Silently, we have worked to free captives from abductors. While we can't beat our chest yet that we had solved all the security problems. We are working hard to ensure that we all have peace of mind in our homes, places of work, and on the roads. Having laid the groundwork of our economic recovery plans within the last 7 months of year 2023, we are now poised to accelerate the pace of our service delivery across the sectors. Just this past December, during COP28 in Dubai, the German Chancellor, Olaf Scholz, and I agreed and committed to a new deal to speed up the delivery of Siemens energy power project that will ultimately deliver reliable supply of electricity to our homes and businesses under the Presidential Power Initiative, which began in 2018. Other power installation projects to strengthen the reliability of our transmission lines and optimize the integrity of our national grid are ongoing across the country. My administration recognizes that no meaningful economic transformation can happen without steady electricity supply. In year 2024, we are moving a step further in our quest to restart local refinery of petroleum products with Port Harcourt Refinery and the Dangote Refinery, which shall fully come on stream. To ensure constant food supply, security, and affordability, we will step up our plan to cultivate 500,000 hectares of farmland across the country to grow maize, rice, wheat, millet, and other staple crops. We launched the dry season farming with 120,000 of land in Jigawa State last November under our National Wheat Development Program. And this new year, we will race against time to ensure all the fiscal and tax policies reforms we need to put in place are codified and simplified to ensure the business environment does not destroy value. On every foreign trip I have embarked on, my message to investors and other business people has been the same. Nigeria is ready and open for business. I will fight every obstacle that impedes business competitiveness in Nigeria, and I will not hesitate to remove any clog hindering our path to making Nigeria a destination of choice for local and foreign investments. In my 2024 budget presentation to the National Assembly, I listed my administration's 8 priority areas to include national defense and internal security, job creation, macroeconomic stability, investment environment, optimization, human capital development, poverty reduction, and social security. Because we take our development agenda very seriously, our 2024 budget reflects the premium we place on achieving our governance objectives. We will work diligently to make sure every Nigerian feels the impact of their government, the economic aspirations, and the material well-being of the poor, the most vulnerable, and the working people shall not be neglected. It is in this spirit that we are going to implement a new national living wage for our industrious workers this new year. It is not only good economics to do this, it's also a morally and politically correct thing to do. I took an oath to serve this country and give my best at all times. Like I said in the past, no excuse for poor performance from any of my appointees, will be good enough. It is the reason I put in place a policy coordination, evaluation, monitoring, and delivery unit in the presidency to make sure that governance output improves in the living condition of our people. We have set the parameters for evaluation. Within the first quarter of this year, ministers and head of agencies with a future in this administration that I lead will continue to show themselves. Fellow Nigerians, my major ambition in government as a senator in the aborted Third Republic, as governor of Lagos State for 8 years, and now as the president of this blessed country, is to build a fair and equitable society and close the widening inequality gap, while I believe the rich should enjoy their legitimately earned wealth. Our minimum bargain must be that any Nigerian that works hard and diligent enough will have a chance to get ahead in life. I must add that because God didn't create us with equal talents and strengths, I cannot guarantee that we will have equal outcomes when we work hard. But my government, in this new year 2024 and beyond, we work to give every Nigerian equal opportunity to strive and to thrive. For the new year to yield all its good benefits to us as individuals and collectively as a people, we must be prepared to play our part. The job of building a prosperous nation is not the job of president, governors, ministers, lawmakers, and government officials alone. Our destinies are connected as members of this household of Nigeria. Our language, creed, ethnicity, and religious belief, even when they are not same, should never make us work at cross purposes. In this new year, let us resolve that as joint heir to the Nigerian Commonwealth, we will work for the peace, progress, and stability of our country. I extend this call to my political opponents in the last election. Election is over. It is time for all of us to work together for the sake of our country. We must let the light each of us carries, men and women, young and old, shine bright and brighter to illuminate our path to a glorious dawn. I wish all of us a happy and prosperous year 2024. May God continue to bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
This is the end of our news update. Please click the icon on the top right corner of your screen to watch my next video. You will enjoy it. I will see you again in my next update. Enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye for now.